This is ABC-7 Extra.
Good evening. Happy New Year. I'm Saul Saiz, and this is ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. The 87th legislative session is set to begin on January 12th, 2021. Since the legislature meets every 2 years, the world, and by extension the state of Texas, has changed drastically since 2019. The biggest change? The coronavirus pandemic. COVID-19 has impacted the state budget, opening a shortfall to the tune of billions of dollars. This in a state that, under its constitution, must balance the budget. Healthcare and education are at stake. Schools have been out to in-person learning spring break. Education funding was a big-ticket issue in the last legislative session and will be again. Also during a pandemic, a nationwide census happened, which will impact redistricting maps for the next 10 years. Those maps determine the number of representatives we send to Austin and to Washington, as well as funding. The questions: will El Paso be able to keep all its representatives? We also just had an election. Republicans retained the majority in both the House and Senate. Our entire delegation is Democrat. And on top of all that, legislators don't even know how the 87th legislative session will look like under pandemic. What will chambers and committee meetings look like? Will the press and the public be allowed inside the pink building? Here to break all of this down is joining us newly elected Senator Cesar Blanco. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Saul. Great to be with you.
Let's talk about Austin. You've been to Austin and you've met with some of the leaders there. What will the 87th legislative session look like?
Well, you're right, Saul. We've had our orientations and several meetings, but each legislative session is different. The upcoming session is really going to be unprecedented. We are going to have a budget shortfall to the tune of $4 to $5 billion. We've got thousands of Texans and El Pasoans who are out of work and are facing food insecurity. Our businesses are struggling to stay open, and all the health and economic disparities in our community have only been worsened by COVID-19. So the first day of session, which is on January 12th, it's going to be busy. However, we still don't know what session is going to look like due to the pandemic. And even with vaccines being distributed to healthcare workers and vulnerable high-risk populations, Texas is now seeing the highest rate of hospitalization since the pandemic started. So while we're constitutionally required to pass the state budget and redistricting during session, COVID-19 relief and recovery is going to be a major priority.
On a physical level, what will it look like, the legislative session? Will you all be meeting in chambers? Will you have meetings? And what's it going to be like? Will you have the public there? Will you have the press there?
Well, as you know, the governor announced that starting January 4th, the Capitol will be open to the public. Mm-hmm. But as far as how we operate, we're still waiting on guidance from the leadership, meaning the Speaker of the House, the Lieutenant Governor, as well as the Governor. We know that there have been several meetings. However, we don't have any guidance as of yet. We do know that daily testing is available currently at the Capitol. We do know that masks are required and social distancing is required. But as far as how opening day and the rest of the session is going to look like, separate from having those plastic plexiglass dividers between members, we don't have much guidance after that. So we're still waiting to see what happens. We really don't know what it's going to look like.
Yeah. What sort of precautions besides the plexiglass will the senators, and in your case, and the representatives, will they be tested? Will they be taking the temperature? What will it look like when you all meet in that pink building?
So I've been to the Capitol a couple of times during the pandemic, and testing has been made available for individuals who are entering the Capitol. And it's basically the rapid test, the Abbott rapid test, where they swab your nose, and within 15 to 20 minutes, they'll let you know whether or not you're positive or negative. So that's one example of things that they will be doing at the Capitol. Obviously, the use of masks, social distancing, the plexiglass. Now, we do know that folks have been pretty strong about allowing in-person testimony during committee hearings, et cetera. The only exception will be for redistricting hearings, where the lieutenant governor indicated that they'll go ahead and take a testimony from folks via video. So that's really the only exception for redistricting, but that's essentially what it's going to look like until we get back January 12th, when we vote on the rules. We'll have a better sense of what session's going to look like.
Have you heard from the Census Bureau yet about just how much El Paso has changed? Because that's obviously something that's going to be taken into consideration when the redistricting map starts to take form. Have you heard at all what if El Paso has changed at all?
So, we're waiting to hear back from the U.S. Census. As you know, COVID has really impacted the census. We've had a lot of political issues at the federal level regarding the census, whether or not they should count folks who are undocumented, et cetera. It's been very politicized, but the pandemic has really impacted the complete count. So here in El Paso, we've had our Paso del Norte Complete Count Committee trying to make sure that we have a good representation of people. But we really don't know until the census releases those numbers, and then we can start the redistricting process. I do know that we're going to have hearings and a variety of things ahead of time to prepare, so when the numbers arrive, that we're able to vote on maps right away. But it's difficult without having those numbers. So we're waiting to see what the Census Bureau does, and hopefully they can get us the numbers before session is over. If they don't, then it automatically goes to the Legislative Redistricting Board to determine the maps.
Got it, Senator. We're going to take a really quick break. This is ABC-7 Extra. When we come back, we'll talk about education. Education was huge during the last legislative session. We'll see what priority it takes this time around. You're watching ABC-7 Extra, where news comes first.
Red or green? A question we all know by heart and by our bellies. But now it means something else, and it's even more important. Red means the pandemic is on the rise in your county, and it's up to each of us to get tested to slow the spread. So this year, the answer is green, because green means your county is reopening and you're protecting your loved ones. The faster we get to green, the sooner we can get back to the red and green we love. Schedule your test today at togethernm.org.
Cordell Walker, Texas Ranger.
He recently lost his wife.
Hear the devil calling.
It wasn't your fault.
Wasn't it though?
You're the ranger with the dead wife?
What did you say?
Guess you couldn't protect her, huh?
I can't stop.
She is gone.
Some things don't add up.
You are chasing ghosts.
I can't think about anything else but her.
Walker.
Premieres Thursday, January 21st on the El Paso Las Cruces CW. 600 ESPN El Paso is your source for sports. And get ABC-7 news updates weekdays from 7:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. 600 ESPN El Paso, a partner with ABC-7, where news comes first.
93.1 Kiss FM El Paso.
I got this feeling
With Mike and Trisha Mornings. Today's best mix while you work.
You're amazing.
93.1 Kiss FM.
Newsmakers, Saul Sides, and you get informed with ABC-7 Extra.
Your response to what Mr. Benvey just said.
Join El Paso native Saul Sides Sunday nights at 10:35 as he brings decades of experience to in-depth debates about the borderland's most pressing issues.
You know, the bottom line is we're in a national emergency.
And even now, they still don't have a permit for that wall.
Extra context, extra depth, extra perspective. Tough, fair discussions you won't see anywhere else. Only on ABC-7.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition. Shutdowns, limited capacity reopenings, and failing businesses have taken over the business landscape during the pandemic. All these issues are affecting the state's bottom line.
Well, I've been abundantly clear. I've been saying exactly what the head of CDC said today. What the head of CDC said today, and that is if everyone can adopt the practice of wearing a face mask for the next 4 weeks, we will be able to get COVID-19 under control. That is my message when I issued that executive order. I said that what I want to do is to make sure that everyone begins to wear a mask so that we will be able to get COVID-19 under control, so that we will not have to shut Texas back down.
I also want to welcome back State Senator Cesar Blanco, and also joining us is Representative Joe Moody, who's stuck at the airport. Representative Moody, I'll start with you. By virtue of the fact that you're at an airport, it's a clear indication that you were in Austin. What does Austin look like for representatives? Have you been to the Pink Building?
Yeah, I was there yesterday, and I appreciate your patience with me and also the background noise here. This is some things we'll have to get used to again, traveling. I certainly haven't traveled in, most of the year, not like we're used to. Cesar and I are used to getting on an airplane every week. But now there's, no direct flights and a lot of complicated travel. And today had a lot of delays. And so spending a little bit more time in Dallas than I thought it was going to be. But the Capitol is empty. It's closed right now, but the plan is to reopen it on Monday, with some safety protocols in place. The challenge is balancing health and safety against, the integrity of our process and public participation. Those are the three, kind of the three legs of the stool that we got to think about as we get back to work in session on January 12th. And so there's nothing easy about the task that's set in front of us, but, local businesses and others have been getting creative throughout this pandemic. And so the government needs to get creative too. And it's going to be our job to make sure that we can do the work that we're supposed to do in a very challenging environment. And while it is no small task, I feel like we're more than up for it, and I look forward to the work ahead.
I'll give you a recap of what Senator Blanco and I were talking about during the first segment. The world has changed drastically since 2019, during when obviously you recessed the 86th legislative session. We had the pandemic, there's a budget shortfall, and obviously there are some priorities still that the El Paso delegation has to take into consideration. In your opinion, Representative Moody, what is one of the priorities for the El Paso delegation?
Well, with the pandemic pressing and ever present, I think that sits on top of everything that we do, right? It colors the budget, it colors everything what we do with access to health care. But there's no El Pasoan that wasn't changed by the events of August 3rd. And Senator Blanco and I spent that day together. And it's a day that I don't think either he or I will ever forget. And that is going to dictate a lot of the work that we have to do going forward, because even though there are very important matters related to the pandemic, I think gun safety and gun violence is something that we need to tackle head on. And quite honestly, we need to tackle head on the hate and vitriol that's pointed at the border in our community in particular. And so those are things that aren't lost on the El Paso delegation. And we look forward to promoting, a good, healthy discourse about community and border communities in general, and also trying to make sure that people that shouldn't have access to weapons don't have access to weapons. With knowing that we have to respect the Second Amendment, we can still do that, and make sure that dangerous people don't have access to weapons that can do horrendous damage, as we saw.
Senator, I'll go to you. Education was a huge priority during the previous legislative session. A lot of money was pumped into it. However, this year, there has been no in-person learning. So how much of a priority will education be this time around?
Well, as we look to balance the budget, I think we need to protect public education, both at the elementary and secondary education, and as well as our institutions of higher education. We made historic investments in public education last legislative session. And we need to, at the very least, maintain that level of investment. The pandemic has really shown the disparity between our families, and we need to ensure that every child has the opportunity to receive a quality education. On the higher education level, we need to be sure that our families can afford to send their children to college. I filed a bill that would freeze tuition at the 2021 level. But this delegation has got a track record of being an effective advocate for El Paso students. We secured $152 million for Texas Tech here in El Paso. We received money for the dental school here in El Paso. And as we increase the number of healthcare professionals in our region, we also need to embrace telemedicine, and that's something that we're going to be focusing on as well. But education, make no mistake, is going to be a top priority for our region and really for the whole state. And it's going to be interesting how we maintain that level of funding during this budget scenario.
Representative Moody, you've been a staunch supporter of some sort of change to cannabis laws here in the state, as you well know. After this past election, several states passed cannabis laws. Arizona even made their cannabis legal, the recreational cannabis legal. What do you expect during this legislative session in terms of cannabis laws and regulations?
Well, I mean, there's multiple lanes we can travel, right? We can look at decriminalization, which the House passed with a supermajority last session, which certainly saves local tax revenue in terms of locking people up and law enforcement resources and things of the like. We could also look at expanding the very narrow medical program that we have, which I think we should do. And then I filed for the first time in the House a retail market bill for cannabis. While I understand that that's a challenging uphill battle, it's no longer a concept that's an experiment, right? This has been done successfully by multiple other states, and so we should be able to engage in this in a productive way, and it could mean a significant amount of revenue to the state in a time when we need that revenue. So anyway, it is worthy of a very robust conversation. I certainly look forward to it.
All right. Representative Moody and Senator, we're going to take another quick break. You're watching ABC-7 Xtra. Still ahead. When we come back, El Paso elected officials for decades have said El Paso does not get its fair share of projects and resources. Do we have a reason to worry? I'll ask. I'll be right back.
When you have zero worries and zero stress, there are zero reasons not to get into a Volkswagen. Click, call, or come by today. Visit our Volkswagen Sign Then Drive event and lease the 2020 Jetta S today with zero down, zero deposit, zero first month's payment, and zero due at signing.
Can you cook up the barbecue bacon burger at home? Well, does your home have fresh chopped onions, pickles, smoked cheddar, Monterey Jack, bacon, tangy barbecue sauce, and orange and white stripes with the word Whataburger emblazoned out front? If so, then absolutely. Good thing there's the limited time barbecue bacon burger at Whataburger. Available by drive-thru, curbside, and delivery.
No matter what your business is, you want it to be a success. As the expert on what your business needs to succeed, it's time to take your marketing into your own hands. Achieve your business goals with the tools at Local Links. Craft effective, powerful videos and commercials, and learn the secrets of great advertising so your message reaches your most valuable customers. Do it yourself with Local Links. 360-degree marketing solutions to power your success.
Visit borderlandlocallinks.com.
An awful lot can change overnight.
Breaking news, one person suffering serious injuries earlier this morning during a house fire.
ABC-7's Good Morning El Paso knows you need to get up to speed fast.
41-year-old man ran back inside to retrieve a pet.
The ABC-7 Alert Center is Good Morning El Paso's tool for the latest updates to keep your family safe.
As soon as we learn any new information about that man's medical condition or any new details about this investigation, we'll bring you the latest.
Only on ABC-7's Good Morning El Paso.
When you have zero worries and zero regrets, there are zero reasons not to get into a Volkswagen. Click, call, or come by today. Visit our Volkswagen Sign Then Drive event and lease the 2021 Atlas V6 SE Tech today with zero down, zero deposit, zero first month's payment, and zero due at signing.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Joining us from an airport in Dallas is State Representative Joe Moody. And, of course, we have here State Senator Cesar Blanco. Gentlemen, we have a situation that could become an issue with some health providers allegedly holding COVID-19 vaccines on shelves, not vaccinating, possibly due to the holidays. That's happening right here in El Paso. Could this hurt El Paso in the long run when the second round of vaccines are distributed? What do you think, Senator Cesar Blanco?
Well, what I do know is that the city of El Paso has done a very good job compared to other cities around the state. They've got more vaccines out in a faster time than most of the major cities in the state of Texas. But I think it's important to note that as soon as we receive those vaccines, we got to get them out to our priority groups right away. And we're going to make sure that happens. We've heard a lot of the mix-ups, and a lot of it has happened at the federal level. You know, there's really been an absence at the federal level, specifically the Trump administration, who has really not played a major role recently because of the elections and other things. But the state of Texas overall is doing a pretty good job. And in El Paso, we've done an excellent job. But there's going to be hiccups. The important thing is to making sure that we get those vaccines out as soon as possible.
Representative Moody, there have been concerns here from local politicians that perhaps if we see COVID-19 surges elsewhere in bigger cities in the state, say Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, that some of the resources that we have here brought to us by the state will be taken away and headed elsewhere. Will you specifically, Representative, be doing anything to try to prevent that from happening?
No, I mean, I think this delegation has worked very well to make sure that we get what we need for our community, and it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop now. It's some of the things that the senator mentioned before about securing funding for UTEP and Texas Tech. I mean, those types of projects in the past maybe wouldn't have happened, right? But you have a very unified delegation that is, it's found its way into leadership positions, even though we're in the minority party. We do know how to advocate for our community, and whether that's pandemic related, COVID related, or infrastructure in any way, shape, or form, we're going to be there, fighting tooth and nail for our community. And I don't anticipate us being left by the wayside, because I think this is a delegation that has spent years making sure that doesn't happen.
I can't let you go without asking you about the Speaker Pro Tem. I know that you were Speaker Pro Tem during the last legislative session. What's going to happen this time around?
It's a decision that's not up to me. I'm very grateful for the opportunity the Speaker gave me to serve in that role. It's the first time an El Pasoan has ever served in that role, and actually the only other time a El Pasoan has served in a higher role in the House was R.E. Thomason, 100 years ago. And so I'm grateful for that opportunity. It's not lost on me. We're going to have a new Speaker on January 12th, and I feel like El Paso is going to be an important part of that leadership team. But ultimately, those decisions are going to be his to make, and I look forward to being a part of that, being part of that team, and making sure that I use my talents in the best way possible for our community.
Senator, let's talk about the delegation and the priorities for the El Paso delegation. What are some of those priorities?
So we've got a lot of priorities. Most important, I think, is public education and higher education for our community. We've secured millions of dollars for our higher ed institutions, as well as our public education, our public schools here in El Paso. So that's always going to be a major priority, to continue to keep the levels of funding and get more money to expand our campuses and provide more programs for El Pasoans. The second thing, I think, is getting our fair share of transportation dollars. As you all see those orange barrels on I-10 and all over the city, it's frustrating, but that means it's progress. And this delegation has worked hard to ensure that we get our share in state dollars. So we're going to work hard to making sure that those state dollars flow to El Paso. The other thing is, as Speaker Moody indicated, gun safety is an important issue. After August 3rd, our hearts were broken, and there's something that we need to do. I think gun safety is a bipartisan issue. It shouldn't be a partisan issue. And we've got a gun violence epidemic in this country that we need to address. So those are the three things that I think that are important. Also, healthcare. We need to expand Medicaid. If we expanded Medicaid, 47,000 El Pasoans would have health care. That will make a huge difference, especially during this pandemic. So those are the things that we're going to be focusing on and making sure that El Paso receives its fair share.
Representative Moody, anything you want to add to that?
Things that we've encountered. You talked about how much the world has changed since when we adjourned in 2019. I think it's not lost on anybody the events of law enforcement involved violence. The George Floyd incident is something that changed the landscape in terms of criminal justice reform and policing reform. So that's certainly an issue that we're going to have to tackle, and we're not immune to it in El Paso. We have some major federal litigation pending right now regarding El Paso Police Department and the way that they handled individuals who were suffering from mental illness. And so we have to do better. We have to do better. And part of that is right-sizing law enforcement, making sure that they have the tools they need to do the job they need to do, but also making sure that other instances that don't need to involve, armed police officers are handled appropriately. And so those are some of the challenges that are ahead of us.
Okay. Senator Blanco, thank you so much for joining us. And Representative Moody, thank you so much for picking up the phone and zooming in so that you wouldn't miss ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Same to you. God bless.
And before we go, I want to remind our viewers to check out ABC7's virtual museum, onecrazyyear.com. You'll find a link to that on our website, kbi.com. The museum chronicles just about everything that happened in 2020, which was undeniably one crazy year. Thank you for joining us. I'm Saul Saenz, and this has been ABC7 Extra Sunday Edition. Good night y buenas noches.